You're just the maid in this house." He didn't even look at me when he said it, just stared at his phone and waved his hand like I was background noise. The sponge in my hand stopped mid-scrub. The floor beneath me was already clean. I kept wiping anyway, like maybe if I worked hard enough, I wouldn't feel anything. His voice again, flat, sharp. "And don't forget to reheat dinner. Mom said it was cold last night." Her dinner. His mother. The woman I'd spoon-fed through her pain and cleaned after without complaint. The same woman who called me Con when guests were over and It when no one was watching. I stared at the mop water. It was cloudy, like my thoughts, like my marriage. How did I become this? How did I go from woman to wife to worker to maid? My hands burned from the bleach. He never noticed. And maybe that was the real heartbreak. Not the insult, not the work, but the silence after it. I looked at my reflection in the microwave door. I didn't recognize her. She looked tired. She looked done. Have you ever given everything to a family only to be treated like furniture? Not hated, not loved, just used? If that's ever been you, then maybe, like me, you're not done. You're just starting. To every woman who's cooked, cleaned, cared, and carried it all in silence, did they ever make you feel small for it? Like you were just the maid too? If that hits something deep inside you, you're not alone. I see you. And maybe, just maybe, it's time they do too. He didn't say sorry. Not once. Not when I stopped folding his clothes. Not when I left his mother in the living room for hours because she refused to let me eat first. Not even when I stood in front of the fridge holding a half-empty carton of milk and said, "There's nothing left." He just blinked, then turned back to his laptop and said, "Figure it out. I'm in the middle of something important." I remember staring at him, not angry, just studying, like I was seeing him for the first time. The man I married used to bring me flowers on Fridays, used to run his hands through my hair when I was tired, used to say, "You're the best thing that's ever happened to me." Now he sighed when I spoke. Now he looked at our daughter like she was a task. Now he looked at me like I was a bill due. I didn't explode. I just stopped. Stopped asking, stopped reminding him about the rent, stopped making dinner. I fed our daughter. That was it. One day he came home and said, "What's going on with you lately?" I smiled, not out of joy, but survival. "Nothing's going on. I'm just tired." He didn't ask tired of what. He just grunted and went to his room. That night, I lay in bed awake, staring at the crack in the ceiling. It looked like a tree root, pushing through something too hard, too cold. The first time I asked for money after that, I did it through text. "Hi, it's the first of the month. Can you transfer the household budget?" No reply. 3 hours passed. I sent another one. "Just a reminder about the monthly budget. Groceries are getting low." Still nothing. Annie tugged on my sleeve. "Mommy, can we get strawberries today?" I looked at the app. My account, $3.45. I crouched down to her level. "Let's wait until Daddy sends the money, okay? Maybe tomorrow." She nodded, quietly, like she understood more than a 5-year-old should. I tried one more message. "She's been asking about strawberries all morning. Can you transfer the usual?" 2 minutes later, a reply. "Stop nagging. I'll do it later." When the vomiting started, it happened fast. She was pale, sweating, shaking. I rushed her to the hospital. I had enough for the taxi there, but when they asked for payment up front, I froze. The nurse looked at me like I was negligent, like I was the reason my daughter was sick. I dialed him. His voice was sharp from the start. "Didn't I say I was busy? Stop calling me for every little thing." Click. Call ended. I stood there, still holding the phone to my ear. Annie curled against my side. I could feel the heat of her fever through my jacket. I called a friend, borrowed $300, swallowed what was left of my pride. They gave Annie fluids, antibiotics. She got better, but something in me didn't. When we got home, his mother was already yelling, "Where the hell have you been? It's almost 8 and there's no dinner." I didn't respond, just took Annie to the bedroom and closed the door. The next morning, he transferred the money. No note, no apology, just $1,500, as if I should be grateful. That night, I made dinner, not because I wanted to, but because it gave me time to think. They sat down to eat, him and his mother. She took one bite and grimaced. "Too salty. You're slippin', girl." He didn't say anything, just kept eating like everything was normal. I looked at my plate, then at them, and in that moment, I knew nothing was ever going to get better here. But what surprised me most wasn't the silence. It was how calm I felt, like my body had already moved on before my mind had caught up. I wasn't angry, not really. I just felt hollow, like someone had unplugged the machine and I was still sitting there, waiting for the hum to come back. Later that week, he came home with a new phone, said it was for work stuff. I asked, "Can I get one too? Mine's been glitching and it's hard to call the school when..." He cut me off. "Why would you need one? You don't even work." I didn't reply. He took the new phone out of the box, admired it, didn't look at me once. I washed the dishes that night with bare hands, no gloves. The hot water stung, but it was the only thing that made me feel real. And then something shifted. I opened my messages, scrolled back through all the ones I'd sent him, the ones about groceries, about school fees, about electricity bills, all of them unanswered, except the one where I mentioned Annie. That one he replied to with irritation, not love, not urgency, just annoyance. I looked at myself in the window reflection. My face was thinner, older, but my eyes were steady. And for the first time in years, I asked myself something simple. What would happen if I just stopped asking? Ladies, have you ever begged a man for money while he ate the food you cooked and sat in the house you cleaned? Have you ever felt more like a utility than a human being? If you're nodding quietly to yourself right now, then maybe it's time to ask something else. What would happen if you stopped asking too? The next morning, I woke up before everyone. The house was cold, not in temperature, in spirit. I boiled water for tea, no rush, no sounds yet from his mother's room, no footsteps upstairs, just stillness. For the first time in a long time, I liked the quiet. It didn't feel lonely. It felt mine. I opened my laptop, dusted off the old email account, started typing. Not to him, to me. I wrote a list, not a to-do list, a survival one. Find a part-time job. Ask Mai if she still knows someone at the cleaning agency. Look into daycare options for Annie on weekends. Apply for library card, find free places to go. Hide the new bank account info. Just 5 things. It didn't seem like much, but it felt like breathing. Around 9 a.m., Mai replied, "Yes, my cousin's agency is still looking. They need someone who can do weekend deep cleans. Are you in?" I stared at the screen. I hadn't worked in 6 years. My hands were rough from housework, not skill. But I knew how to clean. I knew how to anticipate needs. I knew how to work hard in silence. I replied, "Tell her I'm in. I'll come by this afternoon." I didn't tell Mike. I didn't tell his mother. I just fed Annie, packed her a snack, and left. She looked at me from the back seat. "Where are we going, Mommy?" I smiled into the rearview mirror. "To somewhere I can be useful." She didn't understand, but she smiled anyway. That was enough. The interview was short. The woman barely looked at me. "You're a stay-at-home mom?" "Yes." 6 years? I nodded. "Think you can handle vacuuming, mopping, laundry, and kitchen work for 4 hours straight?" I looked her in the eyes. "Yes, that's my warm-up." She smiled. "Trial shift Sunday." I walked out into the sunlight with a crumpled note and a name badge. It wasn't a career, but it was a door. Back at home, Mike was still working in the bedroom. His mother was on the couch watching drama reruns. I walked in. No one asked where I'd been. No one noticed. I stood in the kitchen and ran my fingers along the counter. Still sticky from breakfast. I left it. On Sunday, I wore a borrowed uniform. Dark blue, stiff collar, smelled faintly of bleach. I tied my hair back, left Annie with Mai. I knocked on the apartment door. A woman opened it, surprised. "You're early." I was ready. She showed me around. No small talk, just floors, cabinets, laundry. I worked, quiet, precise. At the end of 4 hours, she said, "You're hired." They paid in cash, 4 bills. I folded them neatly, put them in my bra, walked out smiling. I hadn't felt that kind of satisfaction in years. That night, I made Annie grilled chicken with real herbs, not dried ones. She noticed the difference. "Mommy, it tastes like a restaurant." I kissed her forehead. "That's because you deserve it." Mike walked in later, looked at the food, then at me. "Did you buy new spices?" I nodded. He didn't ask how. For the next few weeks, I worked every weekend. 3 clients, each one paid in cash. I didn't spend it. I hid it. Behind the bookshelf, taped into a photo frame. Under my old novels. In a sock drawer no one used. It wasn't a fortune, but it was mine. One day, I heard Mike on the phone. "Yeah, she's mellowed out again. No more drama." I paused. Mellowed out? I guess that's how he saw it. When I stopped fighting, when I got quieter. He thought that meant peace, but really, it meant strategy. He started smiling more, coming home earlier, even bought Annie a new toy. He thought we were healing, but the truth was simpler. I had found something to live for that didn't involve him, and for now, that was enough. But then, one night, I found a receipt from a restaurant for 2, and a bottle of wine we never drank. I placed it back where I found it. Didn't say anything. Not yet. That's how it always starts. Hope creeps in. Then you hear the echo of a laugh that's not yours. A whisper you weren't meant to hear. A detail that doesn't add up. And you just know. The calm is only surface deep. The storm hasn't hit yet, but it's coming. And this time, I won't be under it when it does. For a while, things felt manageable. Mike started sending the allowance on time. Not much, but without being asked. He kissed Annie's forehead before leaving for work. He made his own coffee. He even asked if I wanted anything from the bakery on his way home. I said no. Not because I didn't want it, because I didn't trust it. I kept working weekends, tried a weekday morning job too. Laundry, ironing, dishes for an elderly couple. They paid in coins and compliments. Both felt more honest than anything I got at home. I brought Annie to the park in the evenings. We played with bubbles. I watched her run. It was the first time I felt like a person again, not just a function. Mike noticed, said I looked better these days. asked if I'd been using new skincare. I just smiled. He didn't know I'd stopped crying in the shower. That was the only real difference. His mother got quieter too. Maybe age was catching up. Or maybe she realized I wasn't listening anymore. Sometimes I'd catch her watching me from her wheelchair. Not with anger, not even with disdain, with something that looked like fear. One Thursday afternoon, I opened the mail. Electric bill, insurance notice, and a letter from the real estate office, addressed to Mike. I almost tossed it into his pile until I noticed the return address, the same agency we used when we bought this house. I opened it. Inside was a statement of ownership. Mike's name, only Mike, not mine. We had bought the house together, or so I thought. We signed the papers in a rush. Annie was still a toddler, Susan had just come out of the hospital, and Mike said, "Just let me handle it. I'll do the paperwork. You've done enough." Back then, I believed that was love. Now I realized it was something else. I put the letter back, folded it neatly, returned it to his stack. He'd know I saw it. I didn't care. Let him sweat a little. That night, Mike brought home flowers, not the kind I liked. Too bright, too loud. He placed them on the table like a peace offering. "Thought these would cheer you up?" I thanked him. Didn't ask why he thought I needed cheering. At dinner, Susan stayed quiet. Halfway through her meal, she asked me softly, "You're not thinking of leaving, are you?" I looked her in the eye. "Why would you ask that?" She shrugged. "You're dressing better, looking at your phone more. You look busy." I smiled. Maybe I just got tired of being invisible. She didn't respond, but her fork clinked louder against her plate. A week later, I caught Mike on the balcony at midnight, talking low, pacing. He didn't notice me at first. "No, she won't leave. She's not that type. She's too proud." Silence. "I'll take care of it before anything gets messy. Don't worry." He turned when he heard the door creak. "Hey, couldn't sleep?" I nodded. He smiled. Too quickly. "Just talking to a friend. Work stuff. Go back inside. It's cold." I did, but my chest burned. The next morning, the flowers were wilted, and Susan's face looked paler than usual. When I handed her breakfast, she didn't speak. She just stared at her plate for a long time, then said, "You remind me of me when I was younger." I almost laughed. "Did someone treat you like furniture too?" She didn't answer, just kept eating. The weekend came. I worked 2 houses, cash in hand, aching feet. But the ache felt good. I was tired from living, not just surviving. When I got home Sunday night, Mike was in the kitchen. He had cooked. It smelled burnt. "Thought I'd surprise you. You've been working so hard lately." I thanked him. We ate together. He poured wine. I watched him closely. He looked too relaxed, too confident, like someone who'd hidden something well. Before bed, he touched my shoulder. "You're doing a good job, Mandy. I appreciate you." I nodded, but inside me, something snapped. Because you don't say that to a partner. You say that to a pawn. I checked the bookshelf that night. My stash was untouched, still safe. 10 thick envelopes, nearly $3,000 now. Not much, but enough. Enough to leave if I had to. Enough to rent, to breathe, to run. The calm was a lie. The storm hadn't come yet, but I could feel the pressure building. And this time, I wasn't standing on a cliff. I was walking toward the edge with my eyes open. It started with a voicemail. I'd missed a call from a number I didn't recognize. It came while I was folding Annie's pajamas. I clicked play. A man's voice, clipped, professional. "Hi, Mr. Carter. Just confirming we've moved your wife's name off the property title as requested. If there's anything else you need, don't hesitate to call." He hung up. So did I. Staring at the screen, I replayed it twice. He said it plainly. Moved your wife's name off the title. Not our property, his. And I hadn't signed anything. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Instead, I walked around the house like normal. But now, every corner whispered at me. Every shadow felt suspect. Mike acted like nothing had changed, still handing me envelopes with $1,500 cash, still joked about how generous he was, still called me babe when he needed clean socks or a favor. But I didn't hear love anymore, just management, like I was one of the bills he had to remember to pay. Susan noticed my quiet. One afternoon, while Annie napped and Mike was at work, she said, "You're watching us, like a cat watches a room." I didn't answer. Whatever you think you know, just remember, men protect what's theirs. I looked at her. You mean property? She didn't blink, didn't deny it. That week, Mike came home with takeout, 3 bags of it, too much food. The partners are flying in next month, he said. They might want to stay at the house. Why? Because it's my house, he said, too fast. Then smiled. Ours, I mean. The slip wasn't a mistake. It was a confession. I didn't correct him. I was done correcting anyone. Annie brought me a crumpled paper from her backpack, a school form. Daddy signed this, but they said you're supposed to. I looked at the line where the parent's name was printed. He had crossed mine out, wrote only his. I called the school the next morning. The woman on the phone paused when I asked who was listed as the primary contact. It says, Mr. Carter, and legal guardian is listed under his name only. Can I ask when that change was made? Let me check. I waited. Her voice came back, low. It was updated 3 weeks ago. The same week I'd found the letter from the real estate office. The same week he brought me flowers. I hung up. My hands shook, but I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. I was focused. I started copying things, took photos of our documents, filed bank receipts, stored them on a flash drive I taped inside Annie's storybook. Every smile Mike gave me now felt like a transaction. Every compliment was bait. He asked if I was okay. You've been quiet lately. I said, I'm tired, which was true, but not the way he thought. Susan watched me clean one night. When I passed her the remote, she said, if I were you, I'd take the money and stay quiet. Why? Because pride doesn't pay the bills. I stared at her. Neither does servitude. She flinched, just a little. It was the first time she looked human to me, not a monster, just another woman who surrendered early and taught others to do the same. That weekend, I cleaned out the kitchen drawers, found a letter I didn't remember receiving. It was addressed to M. Carter, no title. Inside was a thank you note from a lawyer congratulating him on the smooth restructuring of family holdings. I Googled the firm. They specialized in inheritance protection, divorce-proof asset shelters, and transitional wealth planning. In short, they helped men disappear their wives from paper. I read it again. Smooth restructuring of family holdings. What family? What kind of man restructures the life you built together without a single word? That night, I lay awake. Mike slept next to me, mouth slightly open, snoring faintly. I looked at the ceiling and wondered, when had he started planning my exit? Had it been gradual, or was there a day he sat at his desk and decided I was dead weight? Did he still think I was too quiet, too trusting, too slow to notice? I turned to look at him. For a second, I imagined waking him up, screaming into his face, demanding answers. But I didn't, because that's what he'd expect: noise, emotion, loss of control. Instead, I got up, went to the bathroom, washed my face, stared at myself in the mirror, and whispered, "I see you." Not to him, to me. I made a plan. Step 1, wait. Step 2, document. Step 3, stay silent. Step 4, leave nothing to chance. The fractures weren't hidden anymore. They were wide open. And if he thought I'd fall through them, he didn't know the strength of the woman he tried to erase. It started with a sock, a tiny white sock tucked into the corner of Mike's gym bag. It wasn't Annie's, and it wasn't new. It was soft, worn, too small for any child we knew. I almost brushed it off. Maybe it got mixed in at the laundromat somehow. Maybe one of Susan's visiting friends had brought a toddler. But something didn't sit right. That morning, Mike had been weird, avoidant, said he was going out for a client brunch, something about corporate networking, with a vague wave of his hand. He used to give me details, names, places, times. Now it was just fog. So I looked deeper. I waited until he left his phone unattended during dinner. He was in the bathroom, and I heard the water running. I didn't have much time. His passcode hadn't changed. I went straight to his photos, and there they were. Images of him, smiling, relaxed, free, at a park I didn't recognize, sitting on a picnic blanket, laughing with a little boy no older than 2. The boy was wearing the other sock. My fingers froze. My eyes kept moving, but my mind stalled. The photos kept coming. A woman next to him, dark hair, sharp features. She was holding the boy in some, sitting close in others. Not kissing, not touching, just comfortable, familiar. There was a video too. I hit play. Mike was pushing the boy on a swing, laughing, "Higher, buddy, higher!" And in the background, that woman's voice, "Don't make him throw up, Michael." Michael. Only people who loved him called him that. My stomach churned. I went cold, all over. My body was in the room, but my mind was somewhere else. I couldn't unsee it. My husband, our money, our time, spent building a second life. I barely noticed the water in the bathroom stop, barely noticed him come back. I clicked the home button, locked the phone, slid it back onto the charger like I hadn't touched it. He didn't notice. He never noticed me anymore. He sat back down at the table and picked up his spoon. "You didn't give Susan her medicine," he said. I nodded. "I'll do it in a minute." And I did, like always, like nothing had changed, except everything had. That night, I waited until everyone slept. I crept into Mike's study, the one he locked sometimes, said he needed privacy for work. I'd found the key weeks ago. It was taped under the second drawer of his nightstand. He wasn't careful anymore. He thought I'd stopped looking. He was right, I hadn't looked in a long time. But I was looking now. Inside, it was neat, too neat, like a fake room set up for photos. One file cabinet, one desk, one drawer. The bottom drawer was locked, a different key. But the file on top wasn't. It held receipts, bank transfers, hotel stays, toys, a second set of rental payments under a different name. And then the final nail, a printed copy of a DNA test. Michael Thomas Carter, 99.99% match. Child, Joshua G. Haynes. Haynes, her name. They weren't just lovers, they had a son. My husband had a second family, and he funded them from our shared life, from the same paycheck he told me was too tight to cover groceries, from the savings we were building for Annie's future. I didn't cry. I couldn't. What I felt was worse than tears. It was that deep, hollow cracking, like something breaking quietly inside your chest. No scream, no sound, just the split. I put everything back, exactly where I found it. I didn't take photos yet, not because I didn't want proof, but because I needed time to think, to breathe, to stop my hands from shaking. The next day, I made Annie's breakfast, braided her hair, told her I'd pick her early from school so we could go to the park. She smiled and told me I was the best mom. Mike grunted on his way out the door. Susan yelled about her coffee being too cold. And I smiled. The new smile. The one I'd wear until it was time to take the mask off. Because now I knew. The game had changed, and I was going to win it. Quietly, on my terms. Not with noise, with truth. And truth was the sharpest weapon I had. I didn't leave, not yet. That would have been too easy for him. He needed to believe everything was fine, ordinary, predictable. He needed to keep underestimating me. It was the only way this would work. So I smiled when I had to, laughed when expected, cooked dinner, cleaned the house, tended to Susan's medicine schedule. I played the part, but behind the quiet, I was collecting. Every receipt, every bank transaction. I cross-checked logins, tracked his movements. His late nights at work always coincided with certain transfers. The same hotel chain, the same street, the same woman. I didn't even need to hire someone. He made it easy. He was arrogant. Men like him usually are. They mistake your silence for stupidity, your cooperation for weakness. But I wasn't. Sitting close in others. Not kissing, not touching, just comfortable, familiar. There was a video too. I hit play. Mike was pushing the boy on a swing, laughing, "Higher, buddy, higher!" And in the background, that woman's voice, "Don't make him throw up, Michael." Michael. Only people who loved him called him that. My stomach churned. I went cold, all over. My body was in the room, but my mind was somewhere else. I couldn't unsee it. My husband, our money, our time, spent building a second life. I barely noticed the water in the bathroom stop, barely noticed him come back. I clicked the home button, locked the phone, slid it back onto the charger like I hadn't touched it. He didn't notice. He never noticed me anymore. He sat back down at the table and picked up his spoon. "You didn't give Susan her medicine," he said. I nodded. "I'll do it in a minute." And I did, like always, like nothing had changed, except everything had. That night, I waited until everyone slept. I crept into Mike's study, the one he locked sometimes, said he needed privacy for work. I'd found the key weeks ago. It was taped under the second drawer of his nightstand. He wasn't careful anymore. He thought I'd stopped looking. He was right, I hadn't looked in a long time. But I was looking now. Inside, it was neat, too neat, like a fake room set up for photos. One file cabinet, one desk, one drawer. The bottom drawer was locked, a different key. But the file on top wasn't. It held receipts, bank transfers, hotel stays, toys, a second set of rental payments under a different name. And then the final nail. A printed copy of a DNA test. Michael Thomas Carter, 99.99% match. Child, Joshua G. Haynes. Haynes, her name. They weren't just lovers, they had a son. My husband had a second family, and he funded them from our shared life, from the same paycheck he told me was too tight to cover groceries, from the savings we were building for Annie's future. I didn't cry. I couldn't. What I felt was worse than tears. It was that deep, hollow cracking, like something breaking quietly inside your chest. No scream, no sound, just the split. I put everything back, exactly where I found it. I didn't take photos yet, not because I didn't want proof, but because I needed time to think, to breathe, to stop my hands from shaking. The next day, I made Annie's breakfast, braided her hair, told her I'd pick her early from school so we could go to the park. She smiled and told me I was the best mom. Mike grunted on his way out the door. Susan yelled about her coffee being too cold. And I smiled. The new smile. The one I'd wear until it was time to take the mask off. Because now I knew. The game had changed, and I was going to win it. Quietly, on my terms. Not with noise, with truth. And truth was the sharpest weapon I had. I didn't leave, not yet. That would have been too easy for him. He needed to believe everything was fine, ordinary, predictable. He needed to keep underestimating me. It was the only way this would work. So I smiled when I had to, laughed when expected, cooked dinner, cleaned the house, tended to Susan's medicine schedule. I played the part, but behind the quiet, I was collecting. Every receipt, every bank transaction. I cross-checked logins, tracked his movements. His late nights at work always coincided with certain transfers. The same hotel chain, the same street, the same woman. I didn't even need to hire someone. He made it easy. He was arrogant. Men like him usually are. They mistake your silence for stupidity, your cooperation for weakness. But I wasn't even angry. I was resolved. That's a different kind of power. It started small. I made backups of his laptop, forwarded emails to myself, took pictures of every page in that study drawer, labeled and time-stamped everything. I made a file, printed and bound, clean, chronological, admissible. I stopped asking him for money, stopped reminding him to pick up groceries, stopped offering help with Susan. Every time I withheld something, he barely noticed. He was too distracted with his second life to see his first one unravel. But Annie noticed. She always noticed. "Mommy," she whispered one night after I tucked her in, "are you okay?" I smiled. "Of course I am." She frowned. "You're being quiet, but the scary kind." I kissed her forehead. "It's a good kind of quiet, baby. The kind that comes before something important." She blinked up at me. "Like when it gets still before a big storm?" I nodded. Exactly like that. She understood in the way children do, without asking more. Susan started to get suspicious. She asked why the pantry wasn't restocked, why the fridge was empty again. I shrugged and said Mike hadn't given me enough money. She grumbled, muttered something about worthless women always blaming men, but she didn't push. She'd gotten used to starving slowly. I wondered if she'd notice when everything was finally gone. One evening, Mike forgot to log out of his laptop. He left it open while taking a call in the other room. I could hear his voice, light, flirtatious. "I'll tell her I've got a work trip. Same weekend? Yeah, can't wait to see you both." Both. Even his voice was different with them. He never used that tone with Annie. I copied the most recent messages to a flash drive, his travel plans, his fake invoice reports, his conversation with a friend about managing both sides of the fence. I could have exposed him then, confronted him, told him I knew everything. But why? So he could lie? So he could twist it into another guilt trip? Say I pushed him away? That I was cold, unaffectionate, just a maid with demands? No. I wouldn't give him that satisfaction. He needed to feel safe. He needed to stay blind. I waited another week. Then I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. One who specialized in complex asset divisions. Someone with courtroom teeth. A woman who had once been in my shoes and now wore heels made of fire. We met in secret. I brought my file. She flipped through it, page by page. When she finished, she looked up at me and smiled, the same smile I'd started wearing. "You're ready," she said. I didn't smile back. "I've been ready for years," I replied. When Mike got home that night, he handed me a half-wilted bouquet like it was some kind of peace offering. He muttered, "Rough week, thought you could use something nice." I took the flowers, placed them in water, said, "Thank you." That's all. He thought it meant everything was fine, but all it meant was I was almost done. The papers arrived on a Thursday, mid-morning, clear sky, quiet breeze. I made sure I was the one who opened the door. The courier asked for his signature. I gave it. He handed me the envelope, thick, heavy with consequence. Inside, the formal separation notice, asset freeze request, custody motion, financial records attached. Everything we discussed packaged clean. I set the envelope on the dining table. Didn't hide it, didn't dramatize it. Just waited. Mike got home late that night, loosened his tie, dropped his briefcase, said he was starving. Then he saw the envelope. I watched him read my name on the sender label, watched his eyes to the firm's letterhead. "What's this?" he asked, frowning. "Open it," I said simply, turning off the stove. He did. His hands started shaking by the second page. "This is a mistake," he said. "You're not serious." I didn't answer. I just looked at him, calm, steady, nothing to prove anymore. He started pacing, muttering, laughing even, that false kind of laugh men use when they know they're cornered. "You can't be serious," he said again. "After everything I've done for you?" I tilted my head. "Everything you've done to me," I corrected. The panic set in by morning. I knew it would. By then, the bank accounts were locked, joint cards frozen, legal summons in his inbox. His lawyer called mine, tried to talk this out like adults. My lawyer responded with a line I loved. "She is talking like an adult. You just haven't listened before." Susan found out 3 days later. I heard her yell from the living room when Mike broke the news. "She's leaving? She's taking the girl? What did you do?" Funny how she always assumed the worst came from him, not me. Because in her mind, I wasn't capable of doing anything real. I was the help, the background, the maid. Until I wasn't. He tried to charm me. For 2 weeks, he became the husband I once imagined he could be. Brought me flowers, took Annie to school, even cooked one night, badly. He begged for counseling. He said, "This isn't us." But it was. It was us. He just never saw the version of me who kept receipts. The best part? I still didn't yell. Not once. Not even when he accused me of taking advantage, of ruining his life. I just looked at him and said, "I didn't ruin anything. I just stopped carrying it all." He left angry that night. but not before shouting, "Don't think I won't fight you, for Annie, for the house." I didn't flinch. "Then fight," I said, and closed the door behind him. Inside, I felt the stillness I hadn't known in years. I looked around the house, the clean floors, the silence. The space that used to suffocate me now felt like armor. He was out there scrambling, and I was in here standing still. Because for once in my life, I didn't have to run. He did. The courthouse smelled like old paper and lemon cleaner. Cold benches, tense silence, eyes everywhere. I wore navy, no jewelry, hair pulled back. No show, no softness, just presence. Annie stayed with my friend Jane, the only one who never told me to be patient or just talk it through. Jane packed her lunch, tied her hair, told her, "Your mom is brave." That was enough. Mike showed up late. He looked cracked, like the facade had worn too thin, shirt untucked, eyes bloodshot, no wedding ring. His lawyer looked more nervous than mine. We sat on opposite benches, no words, just legal breath between us. The judge called our names. We stood. The truth began. My lawyer spoke first. Every message, every transfer delay, every audio clip where I had to beg for milk money, all documented. Every time Annie needed medicine and I had to ask 3 times. Screenshots projected, dates, times, his responses. "Stop nagging, busy, you women always want more." They landed like bricks in the quiet room. Then came the voice recordings. He hadn't known I started recording the day Annie got sick. The court heard his voice, irritated, dismissive, cold. When the clip of him hanging up on me in the ER played, even the court clerk looked down. His lawyer objected, said it was invasive. The judge waved it off. She had the right to document neglect that endangered a child. Neglect. That word echoed. Then came the financials. My spreadsheets, 6 years of household expenses, every diaper, every grocery bill, every copay, all matched against his monthly deposits, down from $4,000 to $1,500 to nothing. He tried to interrupt. I was supporting the family, she wasn't working. But the judge held up a hand. She was working. Unpaid labor is still labor. His face twisted. He looked at me like I was the villain in his redemption arc. I didn't blink. Then came my final exhibit, photos of Susan. In her filth, left alone after I stopped helping. Of Annie's lunchbox, empty because I couldn't afford bread that week. And finally, a photo of Annie outside his office building, alone, the day he tossed her out. I stood. "I didn't leave this marriage because I stopped loving," I said. "I left because no one loved me back." The courtroom was still. Then the judge cleared her throat and ruled. I got full custody. He got weekend visits, supervised. He kept his pension, I kept Annie. I declined spousal support. But I got what mattered: freedom, proof, and my name on paper as the parent who stayed. After the ruling, Mike followed me outside. "Are you happy now?" he asked. His voice had no fight left. "No," I said, "but I'm free." He nodded, looked away. Maybe for the first time, he saw me. Not as a wife, or a maid, or a background character in his life, but as someone who survived him. I didn't gloat, didn't post it online, didn't celebrate. I went home, hugged Annie, and made pancakes. That was my victory. Silence, safety, and my daughter saying, "You're the strongest woman I know." The first morning in the new apartment, I woke up before the sun. Not out of anxiety, not to clean or cook or rush, just awake, still, breathing. No yelling from another room, no checklist waiting. Just a bird, somewhere out the window, trying out its voice. I laid there a few minutes longer, because I could. That alone felt like a kind of wealth. The place was small, 2 rooms, beige carpet, a kitchen barely bigger than the hallway, but it was mine. I picked out everything, the off-white curtains, the cracked ceramic mug, the cheap but sturdy second-hand couch. No one else had a say. I'd spent years in someone else's house, moving through hallways like a ghost. Now, I breathed in my own space. Even the silence felt loyal. Annie adapted quickly. She picked the bed by the window. She taped stars to the ceiling. She helped me name our rubber plant, Brave Leaf. On the fridge, she drew us holding hands under a rainbow, and above it wrote, "Home." Not Dad's house, not Grandma's house, just home. Money was tight, but it came steady now. I cleaned houses 3 days a week, did live-in care every other weekend. It was honest work. No one rolled their eyes when I spoke. No one sighed when I asked for pay. Some even said, "Thank you." That used to make me tear up, still does sometimes. I'd forgotten how good it felt to be seen. Sundays became ours. We'd walk to the corner bakery, split a pastry, and read in the park. Sometimes Annie would fall asleep in my lap. Sometimes I would. The world kept turning, but slower now, kinder. One afternoon, while folding laundry, I found an old scarf tucked deep in a forgotten bag. Mike had given it to me during our first winter together. I held it in my hands, let the weight of it press down. Then I opened the balcony door, stood in the breeze, and let it go. It floated, caught, danced, dropped. Gone. I didn't cry. There was nothing left to mourn, only space to fill. There were hard days. The car stalled, a bill came early, Annie got sick. But I never once had to beg for money, never once heard, "You don't work, what do you even do all day?" I did everything, and somehow it felt easier than doing nothing under someone else's thumb. Neighbors started waving. The lady downstairs offered me hand-me-downs for Annie. Even the cat from next door began curling up on our welcome mat. It wasn't a grand life, but it was mine, and I was alive in it. Annie said something one night as I tucked her in. "Mommy, you're like a mountain now." I smiled. "What do you mean?" "You don't move for anyone." I kissed her forehead and let those words settle deep into me. I used to rehearse apologies in my head for being tired, for asking, for not smiling enough, for speaking too much or too little. I thought being good meant being quiet. Turns out, it just meant being small. One afternoon, months after I left, I got a message from Mike's cousin. Just a single, "You could have handled it better." I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because here's the truth. I did handle it. I handled everything. The caregiving, the silence, the years of being talked over, erased, expected to vanish. And when I left, I did it with no screaming, no scene, just truth and a closed door. Sometimes women get told they're too much, but more often, we're told nothing. We're expected to just know our place, to feel grateful for less, to make do, to disappear gracefully. And when we stop disappearing, they call us angry, ungrateful, cold. I've been called all those things now. It doesn't shake me, because I know what I am. The day I signed the divorce papers, Mike didn't look me in the eye, not even once. He didn't ask how Annie was doing, didn't ask what I planned to do next. That was fine. His silence was finally useful. It gave me room to speak. This is my voice now. I was the woman who ran the house. I was the woman who raised the child. I was the woman who held your sick mother when you couldn't be bothered. I was the one you thought would never leave. But I did. I don't need pity. I don't want praise. I want women like me to know we are not maids. We are not property. We are not meant to live half lives in other people's shadows. So if you're reading this or hearing this or seeing a bit of yourself in my story, just know you are not wrong for wanting more. You are not weak for walking away. You are not selfish for choosing peace over performance. My name is Mira. I am a mother, a worker, a woman, and I am no longer afraid of being alone because I've met myself now, and I like her. That's my final word, and it's enough.